Creating global events that move people, unite cultures, and leave a lasting impact is no small feat. Welcome to the Onor Podcast, a space for conversations with changemakers shaping the future through creativity, leadership, and purpose. Today, we speak with Brandy Thigpen, a high-level sports leader and visionary event strategist. Brandy is currently leading operations for the FIFA World Cup 2026 in Los Angeles, a historic event set to be one of the largest sporting spectacles ever hosted in North America. With a background that includes roles on the Super Bowl and Special Olympics, she brings a unique blend of precision, passion, and people-first leadership to the global stage.
Welcome, Brandy Thigpen. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So, how did your early love for sports shape your approach to organizing events?
I grew up in a family in small town Alabama of sports-loving parents and a sister. Both of my parents played adult leagues when I was a child. My sister and I both played multiple sports growing up. And my parents loved to travel. They were big supporters of the local college teams. And so often as a little girl, our vacations were built around either the beach or a sporting event. And one of my most favorite childhood memories, when I was, I believe, 9 years old and my sister was 11, for Christmas every year, my sister and I got money. There was always an envelope on the tree that had money, that was just cash. And it was one of those gifts that we opened last because we knew what it was every year. And this particular Christmas, my sister and I, neither one took the envelope from the tree. So my parents said, "Are you not gonna get your envelope off the tree?" So we did. Opened the envelope, and it wasn't cash this particular year. It was 3 tickets. And as we looked through these tickets, there were for 3 football games 3 days in a row in Florida and Georgia. So 1 week later, we packed our bags and went on family vacation. On Christmas Eve, we went to Jacksonville, Florida to see Alabama and North Carolina play in the Gator Bowl. We got up in Jacksonville on New Year's Day and drove to Orlando, Florida to watch Tennessee and Penn State play in the Citrus Bowl. And then on January 2nd, we got up and drove to Atlanta to see the Cardinals and the Falcons play. So here my parents were with 2 girls, 8, 9, and 11 years old. And we went on a 3 or 4 day road trip of just football games. And looking back now, that's still to this day one of my most favorite childhood memories, and probably something that really laid the foundation for my love of sports and wanting to be in that industry.
That does sound like such an amazing experience, and it just makes me emotional to see you thinking about it with so much love and appreciation. Have there been some other personal experiences that have laid the foundation of the way you approach organizing events today?
So when I was a little girl, we had paper tickets. There weren't digital tickets when I was a kid. And just the experiences of going to a football game. And if you were looking to purchase tickets, you would hold however many tickets you needed. You would hold your fingers up in the air as you walked around, downtown Atlanta or wherever you were in the moment, going to the sporting event. If you had tickets for sale, you would hold your tickets in the air. And walking around with my family at football games and basketball games and other games when my dad was either looking for tickets to purchase or had tickets to sell just stuck with me. And it was an experience. Every aspect of the event is an experience for somebody that's going to bring them back to, memories years from now.
How do you use technology to enhance the experience?
So everything now is so instant. So as we're planning events like the World Cup, like the Super Bowl, like the Olympics, all of the digital signage throughout the city, can change instantly. So if a freeway gets shut down for an accident, we have the ability to change that signage. The experience now is built into the app. Everybody has an app, and you follow along that app. It may tell you may be able to load your schedule for the day. All of the festivities that you're joining when you come to this event. You can have it all at your fingertips. You don't have to print the MapQuest directions anymore to follow along to try to get to the stadium. We have driverless cars. here in LA. You know, that's something that we didn't have that as a child. I didn't even take a taxi with my parents when we were going to an event as a child. And now as you plan to go to an event, you think, am I going to drive? Am I going to take ride share? Just the evolution of technology has created the way we travel to events, the way we move through events, and the way we broadcast the information for those events.
Any other types of challenges and changes you've had to address that you could share with us?
Yeah, so one of the most difficult challenges of my career, I've been in this industry for over 20 years, and in 2015, Los Angeles hosted Special Olympics World Games. Special Olympics World Games is actually bigger than the Olympic and Paralympic Games. Athletes have intellectual disabilities. They came from all over the world to LA. This was the first event that ESPN had ever televised for Special Olympics, so it was a really big deal for us. We had a fantastic team that came together to plan this event. It's not the same as planning an Olympic Games. They don't have a team that goes from one city to the next planning this event. They have a whole new team every single year that this event comes along. So you have to kind of start from scratch all over again. The event lasted about 2.5 weeks. On our first night, on our first major arrival night, I got a call at about 7:30 in the evening on my cell phone as I sat down to eat dinner with my family that we had a transportation emergency at LAX. We had these athletes coming in from all over the world, and their shuttle bus drivers were not monitoring flights. So a bus driver cannot drive around the clock. The union will only allow them to drive for so many hours. Since they weren't monitoring flights and flights were delayed, the bus drivers timed out and left the airport and left hundreds of intellectually challenged athletes stranded at LAX with no transportation. So in my position, they called me to let me know this was a problem and how was I going to fix it. My first thought was take a deep breath. We're going to get through this. My leadership called and assured me that they weren't going to bed until I went to bed. We were all in it together. At the time, I drove a Land Rover. I said, listen, I can empty my car and I can be there and I can take as many. We can just drive back and forth, whatever we need to do. I got on the phone calling schools to see about school buses, taxis, trains, whatever we could do. And ultimately, we had to call in support. The Red Cross had to come in and support us. But at the end of the day, that did not overshadow our experience. This was one of the greatest Special Olympics World Games that the world had seen, and probably the most impactful event that I've ever worked on in my career.
That is amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And what advice would you give people that are new at organizing events when they go through a challenging moment like that?
Don't ever be afraid to ask the question. You'll often hear in sports, there's a saying called, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And I really live by that. If you don't ask, you're never going to know the answer. And at the end of the day, the answer is always no if you don't ask. So ask the question. That may be, what can I do to help? It may be, why did you choose that answer? But you're going to learn. Either way, whatever question you ask, you're going to learn something you didn't know.
Talking about challenges, what do you think are the greatest challenges, but also opportunities when planning and organizing the FIFA 2026 World Cup?
So something that keeps me up at night, talking about challenges, is FIFA does not allow stadiums to use their naming rights. So SoFi Stadium will not be referred to as SoFi Stadium for the World Cup. Instead, it will be the Los Angeles Stadium. Well, in a city like Los Angeles, we have a lot of stadiums. We have a lot of professional teams here. So if you're coming from Japan and you've never been here, if you Google the Los Angeles Stadium, you're not going to get SoFi Stadium. You're going to get a list of all the stadiums that we have here in Los Angeles. So as we're looking to plan this event and welcome people from all over the world, it's important that we keep that in mind. When people go to the metro station, if they see SoFi Stadium, but they're looking for the Los Angeles Stadium, they may not put two and two together. If you're going to use a GPS service like Waze and you type in the Los Angeles Stadium, if we haven't changed those logistics, It's not going to take you to SoFi Stadium. So we have to change Google searches. We have to think about freeway signage that says SoFi Stadium. What are we going to do with the freeway signage so that you can find your way? What about taxi drivers? How are they going to, we have to educate them to be able to find the Los Angeles Stadium when in a city like this where we call it SoFi, they have to be able to find their way to the Los Angeles Stadium. So that's a big challenge that I really kind of lose sleep over sometimes at night now, because there are a lot of details that go into that.
Yes, it does sound like you're going to have to collaborate with so many stakeholders, and there has to be not only dialogue but also training and involvement. And are there certain opportunities that you see rising out of this challenge, certain new innovative ideas about how to do that?
So FIFA does this really well. FIFA soccer unites people from all over the world where there's a language barrier, right? But what everybody knows is a soccer ball. They know what that soccer ball is. So we'll look at using soccer ball decals instead of changing names. So you may go to the metro station and follow the soccer balls. So something very easy, very practical, and it doesn't cost as much money as if we need to go change the names everywhere.
When you come up with these very innovative solutions, how does your previous experience with other important events help you to do that?
So I have a very big picture brain. My brain works a little different than a lot of other people's. So I look kind of long term. What is our goal here? And everything on a daily basis, the way I live life is walking through step by step to get to that goal. So for myself, I plan based on my experience. If you're inviting me to an event, I'm going to want to know, what do I wear? What time do I arrive? What's the weather going to be like? What's the environment I'm in? So when I'm planning an event, I want to give you all of that same information. I really live by treating people the way I want to be treated. So I try to go through step by step to get to that end goal, whatever that big picture is. And I'm a great problem solver. So it's very easy with me. I don't want to say easy, but having this big picture brain and being able to walk through step by step it's so helpful in the planning, because I may not always think about everything, but I think about most things.
I love that. And I love how you mentioned that you're a problem solver. What would be either an acquired skill or a talent that has helped you a lot in your career so far?
I think the biggest thing for me is that I've had the support from my leadership to ask all the questions. I explain often in the way I learn, I'm going to ask a lot of questions. And I explain it to people because I don't want you to think I'm questioning your authority or your ability or your leadership, but I want to understand if we're in a difficult situation and I come to you and say, this is the problem, we have a couple of solutions, I'm going to want to understand why you chose solution A over solution B. Not because I need to know why did you choose that, but if I'm ever in this situation ever again, A may not be the same answer the second time, but I want to understand why. So I'm kind of like a little kid at heart. Why? Why did you do it that way? Why was that the right answer? But again, it takes you back to that big picture again to see how all the puzzle pieces fit together. And I've had the leadership that supported me in the way that I learn, rather than backpedaling. Some people say, why do you need to know that? But it helps me be a better professional. And at the end of the day, it helps me be a better person. Because if I understand your needs, I can meet your needs better.
You mentioned being a younger kid and how things have helped you to develop. If you were to talk to your younger self now, what would you tell her?
I often have this conversation with my mom. I'm a mom myself now, and I see a lot of myself in my son. I was a tough kid. I was very stubborn. But my mom tells me now that as stubborn as I was as a kid is what's helped me be a successful adult. So not so much what I do differently, but lean into that. Be true to yourself. Let that shine, right? Because at the end of the day, it's made me who I am today.
Wonderful. Do you have a personal mantra or motto that guides you?
Be kind and lead by example. I often refer to a quote from Bear Bryant, who's a legendary football coach at the University of Alabama. And that quote was, "It don't cost nothing to be nice, and it don't cost nothing to do the right thing most of the time, but it costs a whole lot to lose your good name by breaking your word." And that's very important to me. Leading by example is something that, again, I've mentioned that I treat people the way that I want to be treated. So I always feel that if I'm kind and if I'm leading in a way that I would want to be led, then we're all going to be successful.
What kind of legacy do you look to leave behind in the entertainment and events industry?
I want people to look back and see how I empowered them. But not only how I led and how I empowered them, but I also want people to think of the memories that they've made at the events I've planned. You know, someone who comes to the World Cup in 2026 in Los Angeles, they're not going to know Brandy Thigpen. But when they get home a couple of years from now, they're going to be sitting around the dinner table talking about the memories they made with their family, their loved ones, their friends. And I'll know deep down that, you know, I helped shape those memories. So kind of twofold, personally and professionally. You know, I want people to feel empowered by my leadership. I want people to know that they could always come to me. I often tell people that no question is off limits. At the end of the day, if you feel empowered and inspired and have happy memories in your heart from something that I've touched, then that to me is enough.
That is so powerful. What advice would you give young people that are looking to enter the events industry in today's world?
It's so important to build strong communication skills, but also building your network. One of my industry mentors reminds us often that your network is your net worth. And every single role that I've had in my professional career has been through some connection in my network. So never burn bridges, work hard, be kind, keep your word, and focus on building that network. You never know who is going to need you, but you also never know who you're going to need.
Have there been setbacks that have taught you something about resilience and purpose? And what have you learned?
Absolutely. So in 2020, we came upon a global pandemic, and I was in the middle of my dream job. I thought I was at the height of my career. I had my dream job. I had just gone to the Super Bowl weekend in Miami, and 3 or 4 weeks after returning from Super Bowl, the world shut down and I lost my job. Number one, I was living in Los Angeles as a single mother with my family 2,500 miles away. I was terrified, to say the least. I had someone at home who depended on me and only me. I was the only income in my household. I was off work for probably 9 months, and another opportunity came along. And it wasn't necessarily the opportunity that I thought was going to save the day. It was an opportunity. That opportunity started as a 3-month contract. It ended as 4.5 years and multiple promotions. And it wasn't directly involved with sports and entertainment, but it provided everything that I needed over those 4.5 years to set me up for what's now my dream job with FIFA.
That is so admirable. And so is the fact that besides having such responsibility for people's memories, for big events, you also are a single mother. How do you balance such responsibilities and be so successful?
That's the $1 million question. First and foremost, I take time for myself, and I don't apologize for it. It's important to put yourself first every once in a while, especially when you live life putting a child first all the time. So I take time. If that means getting extra sleep, I do it. If it means my workout, I get it done. I drink a lot of water. I put forth a lot of effort in just caring for myself. Self-care is something that is important not only for how hard I work, but also in this industry. There are a lot of long hours. There are a lot of late nights. There are lots of being on your feet. So it's just important. And my biggest thing is that you have to put yourself first. And it's okay. And you don't have to apologize for it.
Now to the part when we're just going to go through some fast fire fun questions. And the first one is, if you could organize a dream event, what would that be?
The conclave. I would love to be involved in, naming who's the next pope. And the reason that excites me is because it's so private. You know, they go into a room and they turn in their cell phones and they lock the doors and they, you know, sit around the table and they choose this person who, you know, is going to be the next pope. Yep. And it could take a couple of days, it could take hours, you know, and everyone, the thousands of people who are gathering outside waiting for the smoke to see, is there a new pope in town? I don't know that I'd ever have that opportunity, but if I do, it's definitely on my list.
I would definitely want to be part of that event. And is there someone in the industry that you admire, and why?
Absolutely. So Kathy Schlossman is the president and CEO of the Los Angeles Sports and Entertainment Commission. She's highly respected in the industry. She's a powerhouse. She's incredibly intelligent. She's very intentional. But something that really sticks out to me the most is several years ago, Los Angeles was bidding on the men's Final Four basketball tournament. And a group of us from LA traveled to the men's Final Four in San Antonio, Texas. And the NCAA has a program where they bring all the candidate host cities together. You get together, you introduce yourselves, and then you go out on 2 or 3 days and just survey kind of the landscape of the project. And then it's our jobs to come back and tell them how that event will fit into our city. Well, on day one, when we arrived at the event, we were all gathered, you know, getting ready. We were a fully female team. And there were several gentlemen. Most of the teams were men. And a gentleman came over to this group of women who were standing, you know, to the side, and he said, "Y'all must be Kathy Schlossman's team." And just the way, the demeanor that he not only approached us, but his body language when he spoke her name just let me know that, you know, she's highly, highly respected in this industry. And that's something that I hope people think of me when I hope to leave a mark on this industry the way that Kathy has.
Which is the song that lifts your mood instantly?
This is a good one. It's an old song by Hall & Oates called "I Can't Go For That." It's got a fun little beat. Most people think it's about a relationship, but it's not. It's actually about the music industry and staying true to yourself. So I've mentioned that several times. You know, be true to yourself, be your authentic self, and that song can turn any bad mood.
I look forward to listening to it. I'm not sure I know it.
It's a good one. You probably will know it when you hear it.
I will definitely check that out. What makes you laugh instantly?
I'm just silly. I'm like a little kid all the time. Life's too short. Life is hard. I'm a single parent. I just graduated with my master's. I finished with highest honors with a 4.0 while being a single mom and working full time. And, you know, life is just, it's so short. And it's hard, you know, be silly. And that's sometimes thinking about when I've popped out as Bob Ross at friends' parties or my boss's going away party when I was the Easter Bunny. It's just, you know, it's nice to laugh and it's nice to look back with my friends and laugh. And that often makes me chuckle. You know, you just never know.
Brandy, that's such a lovely way to, let's say, shape up the end of our conversation. It's uplifting. It's really a reminder that at the end of the day, we need to remember to be children and to be ourselves. I'm grateful for all the insights, for your personal stories. They're so inspiring and empowering. And thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. It was lovely to have a conversation with you.